You're watching News Central now on News Central Television with me, Blessings Mosugu. The top stories at this hour. NLC President Joe Ajaero released after 15 hours in DSS custody. NCC moves to enhance security in mobile communications, launches system to register and track devices. Burkina Faso military government struggles as Islamist insurgency escalates in the country. We've got the details in a moment. News Central now this hour begins in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where the Department of State Services, DSS, released Nigerian Labour Congress NLC President Joe Ajaero late on Monday after detaining him for about 15 hours. Ajaero was arrested at 7 a.m. local time on Monday at Abuja's Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport while heading to the UK for a World Trade Union Congress event. Ajaero's lawyer, Abubakar Mashal, confirmed he's released, but said the DSS seized Ajaero's passport and required him for further questioning if needed. The arrest sparked criticism from Amnesty International and others who condemned it as an attack on human rights. The NLC called the arrest an escalating crackdown on civic space, while another lawyer, Maxwell Opara, argued that Ajaero had informed the DSS of his travel plans. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has condemned what it termed the brazen and illegal detention of its president, Comrade Joe Ajaero, by the Nigerian authorities without any legal warrant or justification. In a communique issued after an emergency meeting of the National Administrative Council, the NLC described Ajaero's detention as an affront to workers' rights and a violation of democratic principles, including freedom of movement and expression. It also said the action was a deliberate attempt to undermine the implementation of the new national minimum wage. An emergency National Executive Council meeting of the Congress was fixed for 9 a.m. Today, September 10th, 2024, to determine the next steps to counter what it described as actions against the interests of Nigerian workers. Earlier on, NLC Head of Public Relations Benson Upas spoke to News Central Television on the development.
We are appalled, we are outraged by this relentless act of repression by the state. We are in a closed-door meeting this very moment. At the end of the meeting, what our response shall be will be made public. We have demanded for his immediate and unconditional release from detention. We have also demanded that this act of repression being perpetrated under the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu should stop. They cannot cow Nigerians. Nigerians have a robust spirit. We are very nice people. Our niceness, our goodness should not be abused by this government. Finally, take note of this poem. When they came for the Jews, I said I was not a Jew. When they came for the teachers, I said I was not a teacher. When they came for the merchants, I said I was not a merchant. By the time they came for me, there was no one left to cry for me. Take note. Thank you.
Earlier on, a public affairs analyst and a legal practitioner, Vincent Otakpupu, spoke to us on this development and the seized passport of Joe Ajaero by the DSS.
The seizure of his passport without a justifiable, reasonable cause, without judicial input, constitutes a breach of his right to freedom of movement, like I've explained in the case of Okama versus DSS. The Supreme Court have emphasized that the right to personal liberty, especially the right section 35, sub 2 and 3. Sub 2 says that the person shall be entitled to a legal practitioner of his choice. Is not free to answer any question or make any statement without his lawyer. Then sub 3 says that the person shall be informed in a language he understands better the content and the fact leading to his arrest. He must be informed of his arrest. Now, the seizure of his passport constitutes that you have not concluded investigation, but you just want to stop him from traveling abroad. That is not welcome in a democratic society like ours. It constitutes arbitrary action of government just to cow those to suppress, those to intimidate the citizens of Nigeria. And in a democratic society like ours, rule of law must not only triumph in electoral system, but in our body politics. Government must begin to appreciate the fact that the people live for law, and the law regulates activities of government and man. And the rule of law also provides that government must be respected, must respect the law and be subservient to the wills and capacities of the law.
Away from that now, the Department of State Services, the DSS, has clarified the visit of its officers to the Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP office in Abuja on Monday. In a statement on its website, the DSS denied allegations of an unlawful raid, stating that the visit was part of a routine investigation by two unarmed agents. The agency insisted the visit was misconstrued as harassment and intimidation. Meanwhile, SERAP has condemned the DSS actions, calling it an invasion and an assault on the human rights community. They urged the President, Bola Tinubu, to order an end to the intimidation and harassment. SERAP also expressed concern over the growing crackdown on human rights and called for a thorough investigation into the incident. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, has launched the Device Management System, DMS, to register and regulate all mobile phones on communication networks nationwide. And this system is part of the NCC's new Type Approval Business Rule 2024 and requires all mobile network operators to connect to the DMS platform. Now, the DMS will act as a Central Equipment Identity Register, CEIR, tracking mobile devices through their International Mobile Equipment Identity, IMEI numbers, and synchronizing them with global databases. The initiative aims to enhance security, control unapproved devices, and prevent mobile theft and fraud. Unregistered devices will be blacklisted, making them unusable within Nigeria. Now, reports say armed soldiers stormed Okama, a town in Delta State, Ughelli South local government area, early on Monday morning, firing indiscriminately. Now, this comes weeks after the arrest of several community leaders. The incident has sparked fear among the residents as the military presence and alleged indiscriminate shooting have raised concerns about the safety and the security of the community. Local authorities have yet to comment on the situation. Now, our correspondent Austin Azu brings us the latest from the story. Good afternoon, Austin. Can you hear me?
The latest here in relating to Okama's situation is still very sketchy because we heard what happened yesterday in the community, and about 3 people were reportedly killed by unknown soldiers. Let me use the word unknown soldiers because what we gathered was like they came in about 11 gunboats, 3 gunboats, then 11 speedboats. And not only that as well, they came in through both the water and the land as well from the neighboring community known as Okoloba. And their invasion yesterday has taken the communities kind of settled back because while the government seems to be restoring, preaching peace, peace seems to be gradually returning to the community, and the invasion is coming just about when the displaced people have lived in the IDP camp for almost 5 months. So it's really, destructive and really painful for those elders of the community, and they are yet to get intense with the reality. And don't forget too well that Okama, became so known for what happened on March 14th earlier this year.
All right, Austin, thank you so much for the update. And of course, we'll be looking forward to seeing how things unfold from that end. Thank you once again. Now it's time for a quick break, and when News Central now returns, we'll look at the impact of floods in Nigeria, in Chad and Morocco. We have the details after the break. Join us again. Many thanks for staying with us. Now let's tell you that a severe flood has ravaged parts of Maiduguri, the Borno state capital in northeast Nigeria. Many residents have been forced to flee their homes as rising waters have engulfed several areas of the city. Now, reports indicate that many residents from the Galtimari area, one of the worst hit neighborhoods, are now stranded on the rooftops of their homes as the floodwaters continue to rise. Emergency response teams have been mobilized to render support to those in need, while the Borno state government has tasked residents living in high-risk areas to evacuate immediately. Still talking flooding, but this time in Central Africa, where several flooding in the country has claimed 341 lives and affected 1.5 million people since July. This is according to United Nations' latest findings. The UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, reports that all 23 provinces have been impacted, with 164,000 homes destroyed, 70,000 livestock lost, and 259,000 hectares of fields ruined. And last week, 14 students and a teacher died when a school collapsed due to heavy rains in Wadai province. Earlier on, flooding in Tibesti province claimed 54 lives. The United Nations warned of the urgent need for action and funding to address the climate crisis as Chad and the region endure torrential rains and severe flooding amid record global temperatures. We now head to North Africa, where flooding has also had a devastating effect. At least 18 people, including foreigners, have died and 4 are missing after severe flooding in southern Morocco, the Interior Ministry announced on Monday, updating an earlier toll of 11. Fatalities occurred in Tata, Erachidia, Tisnit, Tingir, and Taroudant provinces, with victims including a Canadian, a Peruvian, and a Spanish national. Since Friday, heavy rainfall has drenched normally arid regions of southern Morocco. Meteorology officials attribute the floods to an extremely unstable tropical air mass causing violent cloud formations. Ouarzazate received 47 millimeters of rain in 3 hours, while Tagounit saw 170 millimeters between Saturday and Sunday. Now, the Interior Ministry said the rainfall in just 2 days equaled a full year's worth of these regions. We now come back to Nigeria with security concerns. The family of the late Emir of Gobir, who was murdered on his way from Sokoto to his hometown in Sabon Birni following his abduction by bandits, have called for justice for the late Emir. The family members and other residents of Sabon Birni made this known to News Central's television crew as they visited the community in Sabon Birni, Sokoto State. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
The journey to Sabon Birni was filled with fear and apprehension. This is because the route has been known to be notorious for bandit activities. After a tension-filled 2 hours, we finally got to our destination.
This is the official palace of the Emir of Gobir, the late Isa Bawa, who was kidnapped and later killed. The community is currently mourning the Emir. We are right in front of the palace here in Sabon Birni, in the Gobir Emirate. We're just going to go into the private house and talk to the family members.
Our arrival at the home of the late Emir was greeted with excitement despite the pains being felt by the family and the community.
The time is that people are kidnap him. He told me, Ibrahim, is it here I want to remember me? I said, no. So why you cannot bring them in the morning and leave this place? I told the people, we don't have that money you can demand with us. He's talking about 1 billion naira. We tell them, I don't have all. In my life, I never see 1 billion naira in my life. So that word I cannot remember with him. Sarki, before he become a chief or emir of Sambini, before he's a village head of Ngwalale.
Lahiya lume ya yi halaye na kwarai, ya zamna da jama'a lahiya lume, ya zamna da dangi lahiya lume, kowa ya zamna da shi lahiya, bai cuci kowa ba, sai wanda ya cuce shi, sai wanda ya cuce shi.
Jin daɗi kuma suna cimami da kuka na sun rasa jigo kuma sun rasa uba wanda zai share musu hawaye. Tuni da ni ga mahaihina ne kuma ni ga suna ta koke-koke sun rasa kaza sun rasa minana. A matsayina na ɗa sai ni ma na zanna ina tunani to wani irin yanayi zan sa kaina ciki don game da irin waɗannan mutane da suka kuka ga mahaifina. Na damu sosai, amma su kuma suna nuna mai ai sun hini damu. Ko shi ai wani abu na da zamu cewa Allah shi ƙara sauƙa kuma Allah shi kawo mana zaman lafiya.
Amin. Despite the fact that Sabon Birni residents have moved on, continuing their daily businesses, they however say their demand for justice is unwavering.
Muna kira wa gwamnati don Allah ta tarayya ta diba ma gwamnatin jiha ta taimaka mata da sojojin da za su kama mata don samun tsaro a jihar Gatamu. Muna da damuwa sosai ga talakawa mu wallahi.
Kaga dole mai kukan mu ga gwamnati ta duba mana game da matsalar tsaro ga babu ƙauyen gada muna da ƙauye kusan 400 da wani abu wanda annan ciki wanda yanzu haka duk sun bar ƙauyukan suna cikin gari saboda irin wa'anga matsaloli da sun ka same su. To kaga gwamnatin tarayya ta duba mana da ta jiha su duba mana su wayoyi mana ga matsalolin.
It is obvious that the abduction and the killing of the Emir of Gobir, Issa Bawa, has brought a lot of pains to the community members and his family members. It is anticipated that all the cries and the plea for justice and for peace in the community and the entire Northwest will be heard by the relevant authorities. In Gobir, Sabon Birni, Sokoto State, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Now, the Nigerian army has dismissed reports of mass resignations by soldiers over corruption and low morale as misleading and an attempt to tarnish its reputation. Responding to claims making rounds in the media, the army clarified that service is voluntary, allowing personnel to disengage according to established procedures. Now, in light of this, News Central's Igbalani Omoni assesses the impact of the alleged resignations to national security.
The Nigerian military is one of the largest uniformed combat services in Africa, with more than 330,000 active personnel. These numbers are, however, getting threatened each year. In 2023 alone, 59 soldiers were approved for retirement, while 196 soldiers resigned in August this year, according to media rounds. The previous years saw 261 soldiers resign in 2022, 127 in 2021, and 365 in 2020, making a staggering 1,008 soldiers that have resigned from the Nigerian army in the last 4 years, sparking concerns about the country's security architecture.
So again, you're experiencing a military that is constantly on the war front, dealing with threats, ranging from insurgencies that have been in the country for over a decade. It's always concerning for any military to see a high number of people leaving because, of course, you want to retain as many military personnel that you have trained over time. You've spent a lot of money to train, but people always, would have a reason to leave, for personal reasons, for family relations, maybe just as a result of the fact that they don't get enough pay.
A soldier's basic monthly salary ranges from 49,000 to 1.7 million naira depending on rank, according to the Nigerian Army website. Allowances such as hazard pay and duty tour allowance are also reportedly inadequate. But it seems the reasons for the resignations are deeper than welfare packages.
Axis of Sapana, Basari, Dutsema, Kankara, Musa. We know where these people are. Just because the authorities have not shown the political will to eliminate these terrorists. That's why I support soldiers who don't want to continue to die needlessly for a battle where the government don't have the political will to finish the terrorists. The right thing is, you resign. You resign.
Reacting to the development, Director of Army Public Relations Major General Yema Nwachukwu stated that service in the Nigerian Army is not conscripted and soldiers are free to leave for medical or personal reasons.
I think I should appeal to our media to play down some of this things most times instead of hyping it and causing a lot of tension within the military and the society. Some of the allegations made of corruption in the military. If there are corruption, yes, it should be condemned, but I don't think that is why the troops, the non-commissioned officer, the rank and file, should be leaving.
As the country grapples with the implications of these developments, there are growing calls for the authorities to urgently address the issues to stem further resignations and boost morale within the armed forces. In Lagos for News Central, I am Igbalani Omoni.
That was News Central's correspondent, Igbalani Omoni, on security matters in Nigeria from Lagos. Now, to more stories. The embattled national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Ajaero, has accused Peter Obi, the party's presidential candidate in the last general election, and Alex Otti, the party's sole governorship candidate and governor of Abia State, of betraying the party and sowing seeds of internal divisions. Now, Ajaero made this known during a press briefing in Abuja after the party's National Executive Committee meeting in response to allegations by several members of the party that he has mismanaged the party's funds. News Central's Joshua Imarai tells us more.
Following the recent inauguration of a former Minister of Finance, Nenadi Usman, as the caretaker committee chairman of the Labour Party, this has not gone down well with the party's outed national chairman, Julius Ajaero. The Ajaero-led National Working Committee met in Abuja and accused the former presidential candidate Peter Obi and current Abia State Governor Alex Otti of trying to set the party on fire.
This meeting held without the authority or consent of the National Executive Council and sought to install a so-called new leadership. Let me be clear. This action was not just illegal, it was a betrayal of everything the Labour Party stands for. A reward for loyalty with ingratitude, a reward for support with insubordination.
A visibly upset Ajaero assured Obi and Otti that henceforth there will be no more automatic ticket for them in subsequent elections, thus throwing the race for their positions open to all contenders.
We have not yanked off Alex Otti and Peter Obi. We have simply said that the doors of the party are open to others, which is democratic. If you look at Section 221 and Section 222 of the 1999 Constitution, it makes it clear that every political party is open to all Nigerians.
The embattled national chairman of the Labour Party says that popular activist Aisha Yesufu and Itua Igodalo were responsible for managing Obi's campaign funds in the 2023 general election, describing the allegation that he was responsible for Obi's failure in the polls as false. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Now, the Labour Party's presidential candidate in the last election, Peter Obi, has called on journalists to remain committed to their role in helping Nigeria overcome its challenges. During a visit to News Central's headquarters on Monday, Obi emphasized the critical role of the media in nation building, stating that progress cannot be achieved without sacrifice from all citizens, including members of the press. Obi highlighted poor leadership as a major issue facing Nigeria and urged journalists to continue being the voice of the people and to champion democratic values. He also appeals to the media to work towards bridging divisions along ethnic and religious lines, which he attributed to politicians who lack competence and capability. He also added that unity is essential in addressing the country's problems.
We can't do this country unless all of us make sacrifice and contribute in our own little way. And the further state is very critical because your voice, you are the voice of the voiceless. You are contributing, exposing the ills all of us are doing because we are the problem. Don't think that anybody was the problem. The problem of Nigeria is not the air we breathe, it's not the food, it's not our young people who are one of the most entrepreneurial, energetic people you can imagine all over the world. The problem of Nigeria is leadership, the politicians. And you have to help us to overcome that. You have to help us to overcome issues we have in this country, which are there every day. Whenever you hear us politicians talk about tribe and religion, it's because we don't have anything to show for our competence and our capability. So we try to replace it but I talk about tribe. So I urge you to continue to do the right thing for your country. We have no other thing except when we will have a country where nobody is left behind. A child of nobody can become the greatest.
You're still live with us on the news. We're going on a short break now, and when we come back, we'll take a look at World Suicide Prevention Day, where mental health advocate urges decriminalizing attempt. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us on the news. Now let's go to health matters. As the world marks World Suicide Prevention Day, Nguvu Change leader Aisha Buba has stressed the need for Nigeria to decriminalize suicide attempts in the country. Now, suicide is currently illegal in Nigeria, and those who survive the attempt face the possibility of legal punishment. Now, some have said criminalizing suicide will not prevent it. Instead, it will punish the most vulnerable in the society. According to the World Health Organization, 1 million people intentionally take their own lives every year, which translates to one suicide death every 40 seconds. Furthermore, attempted suicide is 20 times more prevalent, so 20 million attempted suicides occur every year. And now joining us to further discuss this on the news is Aisha Buba, Nguvu Change leader. Thank you so much, Aisha, for joining us on the news.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Aisha, this is an alarming statistics, and of course we know that in this part of the world, attempted suicide is illegal, and these calls to decriminalize suicide attempt is not a position that is supported by everyone. Now, some people will feel that it gives impetus to those people since there is no consequence for their actions, regardless of the fact that the other people that they intend to leave behind will suffer the consequences of these actions. Do you agree with that view?
I'm sorry, please, can you come again?
All right, so basically I'm saying that, there are calls, especially by you and your team, to decriminalize suicide attempt. And I'm sure that there's so many other people who are in support, but some other people would argue against that. Some would say that it's like giving them impetus to commit the crime. When they do it and they fail, they would want to do it again, regardless of who they're leaving behind to suffer the consequences. So do you agree that they should not, or they should be criminalized for attempting that? Or what is your take on it?
So I do not agree that criminalizing discourages anyone, because if you look at it, we still have a high suicide rate. Like you already highlighted, every 40 seconds, someone in the world dies by suicide. Nigeria is not left behind. Almost every other day in the news, you're reading about suicide cases. So clearly, criminalizing it doesn't reduce or change anything. If anything, it makes it worse. Because what criminalizing it does is it means if you attempt suicide, you have to succeed. So there are no criminal charges against you. So this means that we would see high cases of suicide, because whoever attempts suicide would want to ensure that they see through it till the end to avoid any criminal charges, as opposed to extending a hand of support to the person, a hand of care that can help them overcome whatever difficulties that they are going through. So I think it does the opposite. If you are criminalizing it, anyone who has suicidal thoughts and makes an attempt will ensure that they see to the end of it.
All right, Aisha, before it even degenerates into the attempt to commit suicide, successful or not, what are some of the common warning signs that someone may be at risk of suicide? And, this is a societal challenge now. How can we as a society encourage them to seek help?
So some of the warning signs of suicide that we can see, sometimes they are not evident until the action has happened, but sometimes they are very much present. You find that the person is talking a lot about death. Their thought is preoccupied with the thoughts of death. They are constantly thinking about dying. Even in their conversations, it's always talking about death. Sometimes you find the person is giving out their most prized possessions. So whatever it is that they hold of value, material things, you see them giving them out, and it's definitely looking out of place, because this person is clearly preparing for something, right? Or you find the person engaging in risky behavior. So in situations where the person doesn't have the courage to carry out the act, or maybe for some moral reasons, like maybe religious teachings, they do not want to do it themselves. You find them engaging in risky behaviors, like you find the person crossing the road without checking, hoping that the car will run them over. But most importantly, the biggest sign is where the person also mentions it, where the person mentions that they want to die, they don't want to go on anymore, they feel hopeless, right? But in some situations, it doesn't happen like that. And the best ways that you can support such an individual is, first and foremost, we need to do away with judgmentality. We need to stop judging and criticizing people, because speaking up is an act of courage. Many people don't speak up. So for the fact that someone is speaking up, it means they need help. That is what you should be leaning towards providing them, asking the person, how can I help you? How can I support you? How can we get you out of this difficult, dark phase that you're going through? Try to research available mental health services within your vicinity or close by, or something you can leverage online that the person can access. These are some few ways that you can also provide support as an individual.
All right. From the statistics that we earlier read, it shows that suicide is not an uncommon phenomenon. But then some people still believe that it's something that is far-fetched. You hear a lot of people say that, oh, it can't come near me, it can't come near my family member, when in fact somebody in most families is either going through suicidal thoughts or getting to the verge or the edge, almost edge of depression. So the part of stigmatization is one thing that we need to look into. But that aside, what are some evidence-based treatment or therapies for individuals who have attempted suicide or are going through depression or experiencing suicidal ideation? I know that a lot of times we hear them say that they give some people who are going through depression sleeping pills, for example. But is that sustainable? And are there any other treatment measures available?
So with suicide, it's on its own. Suicide is not a mental health condition or a disorder, right? But a lot of times it goes hand in hand with a mental health condition. Although there are other social factors like economic crisis, loss of job, or something like that that can lead one to attempt suicide. But there are also mental health conditions. So like you rightly said, if there is a history or a case of depression and it's triggering the suicidality for the individual, now in treating the depression, there are different approaches. Yes, therapy can be used. There is a popular technique called cognitive behavioral therapy that helps the person address the negative thoughts and emotions that they are going through. In severe cases, medications can also be used to manage the symptoms. Now, if someone's suicidality is triggered by a mental health condition, once there is treatment put in place for the mental health condition, the signs and symptoms of suicide is expected to drop. Right. So first and foremost in addressing or treating suicide thoughts is to identify what the root cause could be. What is causing these suicidal thoughts? Is it a mental health condition that it needs to be treated? It needs to be focused on. Or if it's other social factors, what can be put in place to support the person and get them back on their feet?
All right, Aisha Buba, Ngovu Change Leader, thank you so much for joining us and, of course, sharing your thoughts on this. And we're hoping that the society does better and, the government does better as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, to more stories now. Nigerian ports are struggling with serious issues that are slowing down trade facilitation and hurting the ease of doing business. Stakeholders expect that the several infrastructural issues that have plagued the industry will be addressed amidst the implementation of the several Memorandum of Understanding signed that should drive the industry. News Central's maritime correspondent, Norma Obiasialu, tells us more.
Nigerian ports are grappling with critical challenges that demand swift and effective solutions, from crumbling infrastructure, including dilapidated roads, outdated rail systems, worn quays, and inadequate equipment, to security lapses, pilferage, and persistent delays in cargo clearance. The situation is dire. An assessment by the Nigerian Ports Authority under former Managing Director Bello Koko revealed that the country would need between $800 million and $1.1 billion to rehabilitate these ports. Beyond infrastructure, major ports like Apapa and Tinkan in Lagos also suffer from severe truck congestion, widespread extortion, and other corrupt practices. Customs time release studies that are yet to be impactful decline in cargoes, inefficiency that has caused long days of cargo clearance, all these further stifle port operations.
We have a situation where your cargo is still delayed unnecessarily. We have a situation where the moment you are making your declaration, there are more than 7, 8 alerts on a particular cargo. So what is time release study in that area? You still have a situation where the documentation that you are doing on a cargo is still very, very numerous. Look at exit gate. How many registrations do we have on a particular cargo? Go and see it yourself. Look at the release. When you conduct examination and examination is conducted, how long does it take to release that cargo? Is it released immediately? When you are even going to release, they will tell you one unit in the part of customs is giving you this. From my investigation, we have 4 categories of cargo. We have the bulk cargo, we have the general containers, we have the vehicles import. On the bulk cargo, our import has dropped by about 30%. On the container cargo, our import has dropped about 45%. On vehicles, our importation has dropped by about 60%. Corruption is a two-way thing, and I don't like to actually talk much on corruption because if the government wants to fight corruption, you build institutions. Where you don't build institutions, you expect corruption. For example, if you are making something difficult, you should expect that people will want to circumvent the procedure. Do we have an enabling environment? The answer is no.
With the appointment of Abubakar Dantosho as the new managing director of the Nigerian Port Authority, the expectation is that the urgent issues of port rehabilitation, tackling corruption and operational inefficiencies that have long plagued Nigerian ports will be addressed. In addition, it is the much-needed reforms and improvements that will ensure a more efficient and effective port system that can drive economic growth and development. In Lagos, for News Central, Norma Obiaswalo.
Still News Central now. Coming up, Tanzania's President Samia condemns killing of opposition member Ali Kibao. We'll bring you the details after the break. Thanks for staying with us on News Central now. Now, the news continues in West Africa, where an attack that killed hundreds of civilians in Burkina Faso last month has exposed the military junta's struggle to contain growing militant violence. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who took power in a 2022 coup, pledged to prioritize fighting terrorism, but experts say the situation has worsened. Burkina Faso severed ties with France, seeking military support from Russia, Iran and Turkey, and aligning with Mali and Niger Republic. Despite these efforts, jihadist violence continues to escalate. Since 2015, over 20,000 have died in the conflict, including nearly 4,000 this year alone. In East Africa now, Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has denounced the brutal killing of a senior member of the main opposition party, Chadema, who was kidnapped, beaten, and doused with acid. Mohammed Ali Kibao on Friday was forced off a bus by suspected security agents while traveling from the country's biggest city, Dar es Salaam, to his hometown, Tanga. Party chairman Freeman Mbowe said the post-mortem found that Kibao had been severely bitten and had acid poured on his face. His death comes amid concerns by the opposition and rights groups of a clampdown on political activity. Now, President Samia condemned the brutal act and called for an investigation into the murder. Now, Mozambique is due to hold elections on the 9th of October, but the campaigns, which officially opened this week for the race to replace President Filipe Nyusi, are turning into a contest of whose words promise a better future. And more than 17 million voters are registered to vote in the October 9 general election, including more than 300,000 people registered abroad. Daniel Chapo is running for the ruling Frelimo party, which is essentially backed by the government, while Osufo Momade is the main opposition Renamo's candidate. Lutero Simango represents the MDM, and Venancio Monlane is running as an independent candidate. Now, at least 37 political parties and associative movements are contesting for seats, but only 4 candidates seek the presidency. Now, to join me discuss this, we're now joined by political analyst Glesio Masango, who joins us from Maputo, Mozambique. Thank you so much, Glesio, for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Now, on the current development, how do you assess the preparedness of the elections? How are the political parties positioning themselves differently this election cycle compared to the previous ones that we've seen?
All right. Thank you very much. I think in terms of preparedness to these elections, there are some challenges from all political actors, including political parties and also electoral management bodies. We have an issue regarding the access to finances. The electoral management bodies have been complaining about the lack of financial resource. 2 weeks ago, they stated that they had a deficit of around 68% of the budget they had planned to organize these elections, which means we could face some challenges in terms of preparing the voting days. However, it's mandatory that these management bodies do manage to organize elections. And this has also affected the political parties in the sense that the law predicts that the electoral management bodies should provide some funding to political parties so that they can use for political campaign. However, there have been some delays in this process. That's why the 21 days before electoral campaign that is predicted in the electoral legislation has not been fulfilled since there have been some delays.
Okay, Glacio, apologies. Let me quickly chip this question in. Since you're talking about campaign, in what ways do you think that the current president's legacy will influence the campaigns of the candidates running to replace him?
Yeah, actually, in terms of the campaign from different political parties, we have Frelimo and Chapo, Daniel Chapo, who is from the ruling party. So in terms of the policies, in terms of ideas that he's trying to bring, is almost more like the same as the previous or the current president. And since the current president is his party's president as well. So in terms of what he brings, we don't expect, and they don't bring too much in terms of change. There are some few innovations that they are trying to bring, but analyzing all in terms of the content of what different political parties have been bringing, in general, from the 38 political parties that are running for 37 political parties that are running for these elections, we could highlight the fact that almost all of them do mention some privacies from people's some things that people do like employment, education, health system, about this kind of issues, infrastructures, which is things that have been affecting people on daily basis in terms of access, for example, to electricity, to access to water. This kind of things, they all are promising that if they are elected, they will bring this kind of services to the citizens.
Right.
However, there is an international context which we think should also be considered during this electoral campaign, which is not being considered, regarding the fact that our state budget has ever since been dependent.
All right, Glacio. Apologies, I'm so sorry for interrupting you, but that's the much that we can take at this hour. But thank you so much, political analyst Glacio Masanga, joining us from Maputo, Mozambique. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And of course, once again, we're going to see how the election turns out and how the campaign will be influenced by the current administration. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. We did tell you that the NLC President Joe Ajaero released after 15 hours in DSS custody. We also mentioned that NCC moves to enhance security in mobile communications, launches system to register and track devices. And finally, we mentioned that Burkina Faso military government struggles as Islamist insurgency escalates in the country. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Also do well to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, StarTimes, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Mosugu.